Hello, welcome to a new video. If you are new to Minecraft and struggling with your building skills or are just convinced that you just aren't a builder and never will be, you've come to the right place. Because I will convince you otherwise. I'll break this up into 4 parts where I'm going to cover the basics of building using materials you should very likely have available in the early game. So let's go! Alright, in this first part we are going to talk about the basic shape of your building. A good starting point is to plan out the base shape of your structure and instead of building a simple box, try experimenting with different shapes. For example, you can use rectangles, L-shapes or even more complex designs. The key is to avoid a flat, boring look. Adding a few extra sections or extending parts of your building can make it much more interesting. Remember, the base shape is the foundation of your build, so take your time to get it right. After that, you do the same thing, just in a 3-dimensional sense. You can add different shapes on top of each other as well. Like with this one, where we have just added a bunch of rectangle shapes and created a little balcony and a porch area. Just remember, when you have an overhang like this, to always add some support. Also, really take your time to experiment with different shapes and combinations. There is nothing to be afraid of when experimenting. It's a learning process after all. Now, let's use these tips to upgrade our little box. So I'm starting off by shaving off a little bit on the right and extending it out in the back to create a little bit of an L shape. Then I saw that the door wasn't centered anymore, so I put that one a little bit more in the middle. Then I continued with building up the roof in a triangular shape using some staircases. Just keep placing the stairs until you get it right. And at the end, I'm going to add a few windows here and there. And just remember, with the first step, you want to really experiment first, just to get your shape and your placements of everything right. Now, as you can see, it does look way more interesting than just a simple box, isn't it? We have this little L shape, already giving it a little bit of depth. Alright, now that we have a basic shape, let's add some depth to it. Flat walls can look pretty dull, so let's break them up using stairs, slabs, trapdoors and fence posts. Placing stairs and slabs around windows and doors can create a sense of depth and shadow, making the building more visually appealing. Trapdoors can be used as shutters or decorative elements, while fence posts can act as supports or trim. You could also create some indentations and holes using some stairs and slabs, and even do it like a little bit randomly. Or you could use some fence posts, support beams, and a little bit of an overhang from your roof or whatever you are building. Small additions like these can really bring your build to life. So, we are going to use these and give this building a little bit of depth, shall we? So I started off by creating a little bit of an overhang for the roof, just by using some staircases and some upside down staircases. I added an overhang over the door and I added some window sills for all the windows and a few window shutters using some trapdoors, some fence posts as support and a little garden, and then I just plopped some at the bottom of the wall just to give it a little bit more decoration. And then I also decided that instead of the glass blocks, I'm just going to use glass paints, which also helps a lot with the depth. Now, would you look at that? Look at all the depth we've created with all those little details that we've just added. It feels way more alive already. But there's still something missing. So next up is color and contrast. Using just one color or material can make your build look mushy and uninteresting. Instead, aim for a nice contrast between different blocks. Contrast is needed in order to accentuate different parts of your build and helps to actually distinguish all the different parts way easier. A very simple example of contrast is the contrast of lightness, like black and white. That is a very extreme contrast that you can distinguish even from miles away. You can still tell that is white, that is black, no matter how far away you go. It's also the easiest way to get some contrast in your builds. Then there's also contrast in hue. For example, if you look at the color wheel, orange and blue are opposites from each other. If you put them next to each other, you will notice how the colors really start to pop. Now, let's look at a few examples. So, Looking at these from close up, you will say, well, yeah, that is definitely tough, and that's definitely some stone, wool, and yellow terracotta, the stone and deep slate, and so on and so forth. You can clearly tell every single line between the colors, so it's not a big deal, right? But now, if I move further and further away, you can kind of see what I'm trying to tell you. Like, look at the tough and stone one. Like, the colors are almost completely the same now. The wool and terracotta, it's still kind of there, but it's already fading a little bit. For the stone and the deep slate, you can clearly tell those are two completely different colors. You can immediately distinguish them from far away. The wool and the concrete, you can barely tell them apart. Like, it's just mush at this point. And then you also have the tough and the deep slate, which is still kind of there, but not as strong as with the simple stone. So keep stuff like this also in mind. There are colors that kind of are a stronger contrast, but not quite there yet. Don't be afraid to experiment with different color combinations to find what works best for your design. So let's try to get some contrast into our building, shall we? So I started off by just replacing all the little details that we added for the depth with some darker colors like spruce or maybe even dark oak. You could experiment to get the colors that you like and that work with your building and your design. It doesn't really matter too much. It just has to be a little bit more, has to pop a little bit more. Then I decided I wanted to have a little cobblestoney roof to kind of change the colors up a little bit so it's not just like shades of brown, and get a little bit of gray in there, which is also a little bit of a lighter tone to the wood. And then to contrast that, I added some deep slate bricks just to give it a little bit of an outline, and the roof really pops now. So, as you can see, every single detail is really popping now. You can exactly distinguish every single stair and slab from the base wall, and it just looks so much nicer already. But there is still something missing. It's not very detailed, isn't it? Finally, let's talk about detailing your build. Once again, experimenting is key. You could add utility blocks like barrels, composters, or anvils to add functionality and character to your build. So I'm going to start off by building a little bit of a path. When building a path, always remember to choose kind of like a main block that is going to go down the middle, and all your little texturing blocks go kind of like around and fade in a little bit into your main block, but don't place them too crazy because it'll only get very noisy. Then I'm just going to add a little bit of a mini wheat garden in the little space that we made. I'm placing some useful blocks around, some pots, some composters, some barrels. I'm just kind of randomly plopping them down, some anvils, a little bit decorating some of them with a little bit of ladders and a trapdoor on top. Adding some pots everywhere, just to be able to plop some flowers in, to get a little bit more color into the building, make it a little prettier. Added some little bushes in front. And also you can use a little bit of controlled bone mealing around your build, just like plopping some bone meal down and removing the excess grass, especially the too tall grass, leaving some of the flowers all around your build. And then you can also use some moss carpets if you happen to find some, which also helps to light up your surrounding build because you can put torches underneath them. And here you have it. By following these 4 steps, you can turn a simple building into something truly special. I hope I was able to encourage all of you to really just play around with these 4 aspects of a build. Minecraft is nothing short of an art medium, so you are free to express yourself and experiment. No one should be ashamed of their art. That initial box of a house is nothing but a blank canvas. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and I can't wait to see what you all create. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts and questions. Thank you all for watching, have a nice day, and happy building! Bye!